we're probably married for this reason. I was watching a football game with her, not knowing an Alabama game was on next. But as we were watching the game, Sandra leaned forward and she said, "Uh-oh." I said, "Uh-oh what?" She said, "It looks like a safety blitz to me." Sandra, did you have a sex change operation? I've never met women like this. And she said, "Shut up." She said, "I'm an Alabama girl. I know everything there is to know about football." Ladies and gentlemen, it was a safety blitz. So the blitz we're going to do today is me getting the guys and you girls. You ain't fooled me. So you can watch that Alabama game. I want to tell Catherine, especially after the introduction. It's interesting to me how you become well-known or not well-known in America. And I remember when I'd written a couple of books, and I went to my grandfather's funeral in Piedmont, Alabama, Jasper Catlett Peak. That was my granddad. Here's the names of his family so you know my exact social background. Jasper Catlett, his brother, Cicero, Pluma, Vashti, Clyde. All these names, all these ancient southern biblical names would come flying out. And we used to clean graves once a year in Piedmont. We'd go up and we'd clean the graves. And I had this grandmother, Stanley, who loved talking to the people who were dead. And she'd go and say, "Hey, Jasper, how you doing?" And, "Well, that's good, that's good." And she said, "You say hi to Jesus for me, you hear?" "Oh, this is our Jesus." I said, "What did Jesus say?" He said, "Hi, back." So I was cleaning one of these graves in Piedmont. And these names just sort of fascinated me even as a little boy. There was one uncle whose name, okay, let me see if I can get this right. His name was Jerry Meyer Peak. Meyer, M-I-R-E. So I said, "Stanley, who is Jerry Meyer named after?" She said, "He's named after the prophet." I told that story once in New Hampshire. They looked at me like I was nuts. Now, I grew up wanting badly to be a Southern writer. I just read Catherine's new novel. It's terrific. It explained a part of Alabama that I've been interested in since I married Sandra. Because you start getting the stories of these states coming at you as you enter into this. And I would never have married Sandra had I met her family before the ceremony took place. But still, I always loved that Southern experience, in writing that Southern experience. And my mother told me something I've never forgotten. And she said, "When you write, son, promise me one thing. You will never be ashamed of where you came from. You will never be ashamed of the people of Piedmont, the people of Alabama." So I wrote for a living, and my mother raised me a Southern writer with the emphasis on Southern. And I started writing these books, and I couldn't help it. I caught a fever in writing these books. Now, when I first wrote the first book that I ever published was called The Boo. And it is the worst book ever written by an American. And I wrote it, it is about the assistant commandant of cadets at the Citadel, Colonel Thomas Nugent Cavourzi. The cadets couldn't pronounce his name. They called him the Boo. And he was this fierce dragon-like man who entered the nightmare of every Citadel guy during that period. And he entered mine. I thought he was like a nicer reflection of my father. I liked this guy because he'd yell at me, but he didn't seem to mean it. And he got fired a year after I graduated from the Citadel. And I said, Colonel, if you ever want to write a book about your experiences, please let me know. I was 21. So he calls the next day and he said, Bubba, were you serious about writing that book? I said, sure, Colonel. And he said, well, get on up here, boy. So I wrote by hand for the next 6 months. Finished 250 pages, handwritten. My father, the Marine pilot, would not let me type. So I wrote this thing, gave it to the Boo. He read it, he thought it was magnificent. I said, of course you do, Colonel. It's about you. It's, you think it's one of... Then he asked me a question. He smoked these nauseating cigars, and he was sitting there in his bed smoking his cigar, and he said, Bubba, you're an English major. How do you get a book published? And I thought about it. I said, I don't know, Colonel. I have no idea. Now, let me give you the translation of that. Because I majored in English at the Citadel, it was an open admission that I was gay. And he said, surely most of the time when you're in the English department and you guys used to go fix your makeup between classes, you would talk about things like how to get it out. I said, I just don't know. He said, and I've always loved this moment of my life, he said, let's look in the yellow pages. So he opened the Charleston telephone book, looked in the yellow pages, and under R.L. Bryant, he found business cards, invitations, books. So I got a coat and tie the next day, and I went in and trying desperately, when you're young. And I tried to look like an Alabama fraternity boy, weirdly in that proper way. So I go in to talk to this guy, and I said, sir, I have written a book. I think you'll be very interested in it. And the guy said, you came to the right place. And he then told me, he said, here's the formula. For $5,000, we'll get you 2,000 bucks. For 3,000, we'll get you 1,000. So he went on. I said, okay, so I have to pay you money. He said, of course. Do you think we do this for free? I said, is this how it works in publishing? It's a business, son. You need to know that first of all. So I went to People's Bank in Beaufort, South Carolina, where Willie Shepard, who was a Citadel graduate, was president of the bank. So I walk into Willie, and I said, Willie, I've read a book about the Citadel. I need to borrow $4,000. So Willie said, you written a book about the Citadel? No one has ever written a book about the Citadel. I'll lend you $5. And Willie writes me out a check. It used to work that way in small towns, kids. It does not anymore. He wrote me a check. I went up, and I think 3 months later, I had a copy of the Boo in my hand. And about this time, I'm teaching on Defusky Island in the first year of teacher integration in South Carolina. So I go out by boat. I was teaching 5 through 8, and I'd take 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade textbooks. I'd take a math course so I could teach you math. I get out to school, the first day of school, and I found out these kids all read below the 1st grade level. None of them knew the name of the ocean that washed up on their island. 5 of them couldn't write their name.